3 days after Commander William Bright's cryptic warning in the corridor, Talex found herself deeply immersed in reviewing the security protocols throughout their DRU operations. The resource diversions they had discovered were even more extensive than initially assessed, and the implications of Bright's warning, "Old habits die hard," continued to haunt her processing cycles. Her communication implant chimed with a priority message. "Director Talex, Commander William Bright is requesting a private meeting," her assistant informed her. "He's returned to the station and claims this is a matter of special importance." Talex's enhancement lights flickered with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Their last encounter had been brief but profoundly disturbing. What more could the human security officer want? "Schedule it immediately," she decided. "Use reception chamber 6. The chamber was one of their most secure spaces, regularly swept for surveillance devices and shielded against all known forms of monitoring. When Talex arrived, she found Bright already waiting, standing rather than sitting, his posture reflecting the military discipline evident in his bearing. Unlike their previous encounter, he wore what appeared to be casual human attire rather than his official uniform. A subtle but significant change. "Director Talex," he greeted her with a formal nod. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "Commander Bright," she acknowledged, her enhancement lights cycling to a deliberately neutral pattern. "Your request indicated urgency." "Not urgency precisely," he replied, gesturing toward the seating area, "but certainly importance." Once they were seated, Bright leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. "Director, your position carries tremendous responsibility. The trade corridor represents not just a commercial enterprise but a nexus of civilizations. Decisions made here ripple throughout the galaxy. Such influence requires perpetual caution, particularly regarding those you choose to partner with." Talex's enhancement lights flickered briefly before stabilizing. His reference to partners was clearly about the DRU, though he continued to avoid explicit mention of them. "The Grent Trading Council has always emphasized thorough evaluation of all commercial relationships," she replied carefully. "Risk assessment is fundamental to profitable exchange." "Indeed," Bright agreed with a slight smile. "Though sometimes even the most sophisticated risk analysis can benefit from additional historical context." He paused, then abruptly changed direction. "Tell me, Director, are you familiar with a human cultural practice called movie night?" The sudden shift caught Talex off guard, her enhancement lights cycling through confusion patterns before she could modulate them. "I have some passing familiarity with human entertainment customs. A communal viewing of visual narratives, I believe." "Precisely," Bright confirmed. "An ancient tradition dating back to our pre-space civilization, friends, families, colleagues gathering to watch stories together, sometimes for entertainment, sometimes for education. The shared experience creates common understanding." Talex noticed he had brought a metallic container with him, which he now placed on the table between them. "I thought perhaps you and your team might appreciate experiencing this human tradition." "While I appreciate the cultural exchange opportunity," Talex began cautiously, "our current operational schedule is quite demanding." "This isn't just any collection of films," Bright interrupted gently, opening the container to reveal several rectangular objects nestled in protective casing. "These are what we call VCR tapes, an antiquated but remarkably secure storage medium from our history." He removed one of the objects, holding it up for her examination. Despite its seemingly primitive appearance, Talex's enhanced perception detected sophisticated quantum shielding embedded within its structure. "Curious technology," she observed. "Deliberately archaic in appearance, yet incorporating advanced protection measures. Sometimes old methods offer unique advantages," Bright replied with a knowing look. "These particular tapes can only be viewed on specific equipment, which I've included, of course, and leave no digital signature that could be detected by monitoring systems." Talex's enhancement lights pulsed with understanding. Whatever these recordings contained, Bright was ensuring they couldn't be intercepted by DRU surveillance. The primitive appearance was deliberate camouflage for a highly secure communication method. "These records contain Historical documentaries of significant interest, Bright continued, closing the container and sliding it toward her. I believe you'll find the content illuminating regarding certain ongoing situations. And you're providing these for educational purposes? Telex asked carefully. Let's call it a mutual investment in galactic stability, Bright answered. I find that understanding history helps clarify present circumstances and future probabilities. He rose, signaling the meeting's conclusion. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you for this movie night. Other duties require my attention, but I believe you'll find the content self-explanatory. As he prepared to leave, his expression grew serious. Recommendation, Director, view these in a location completely isolated from all networked systems. Some historical records can be controversial when viewed from certain perspectives. Telex's enhancement lights pulsed with acknowledgement. Thank you for this cultural offering, Commander. The Grent Trading Council values such exchanges. Indeed, Bright agreed, moving toward the door. Understanding is the foundation of wise decision-making, especially when the stakes involve more than mere commercial profit. At the threshold, he paused. Director Telex, humans have an ancient saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I believe your species has a similar concept regarding historical trading patterns. We do, Telex confirmed. History's ledger balances all accounts eventually. Precisely. Bright nodded. I hope these records help ensure your current ledgers remain favorably balanced. After he departed, Telex studied the container of VCR tapes, her enhancement lights cycling through analysis patterns. The human's purpose had been clear despite his careful phrasing. This was intelligence being shared through an unofficial, deniable channel. She activated her secure communication implant. Jervis Selimenti, prepare. Isolation Chamber 3 for immediate use. Ensure it's completely disconnected from all networks. And inform we have received a cultural offering from our human associates. Isolation Chamber 3 was a specialized facility within the Trade Corridor's administrative core, designed for examining potentially dangerous materials or technology. Completely disconnected from all networked systems, magnetically shielded, and powered by an independent energy source, it provided perfect security for viewing whatever the mysterious tapes contained. Jervis examined the playback equipment with fascination, his technical enhancements analyzing its construction. Remarkable combination of primitive and advanced technology. The exterior presents as antiquated human design, but the internal components incorporate quantum shielding and neural interface adapters compatible with our enhancement systems. Can you make it functional? Telex asked. Already configured, Jervis confirmed, connecting the device to a large viewing screen. I've calibrated the output for our visual receptors. The original human format would appear quite crude to our perception systems. Studied the collection of tapes, his ancient eyes thoughtful. The humans are sharing intelligence through unofficial channels, significant given their usual protocols. They could have simply confronted us with their knowledge of our Drew operations, Monty noted. This approach suggests other motivations. Perhaps the evidence isn't conclusive, Sella suggested, or perhaps official acknowledgement would require actions their leadership isn't prepared to take. Let's find out exactly what they know, Telex decided. Jervis, begin playback of the first tape. The screen flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be classified human military footage. Date stamps indicated recordings from various periods, some from the original Drew-Human War, others clearly recent. The contrast was jarring. Ancient, grainy footage of massive Drew battleships alongside modern high-resolution surveillance showing the hidden activities of the cybernetic Drew. For the next 4 hours, the Grent traders watched in stunned silence as the tapes revealed a comprehensive record of their partner's deception. The evidence was methodical and damning. Surveillance footage showed cybernetic Drew vessels using the Trade Corridor's shipping lanes as cover for transporting materials to hidden construction facilities beyond the galactic rim. Recordings captured Drew agents infiltrating human research installations to steal technological data, their cybernetic components temporarily deactivated or disguised. Most disturbing were intercepted communications between Mithrex and other Drew leaders, explicitly discussing their use of the Grent resurrection program as a distraction while they rebuilt their military capabilities. The Grents serve their purpose, Mithrex could be heard saying. They believe themselves to be guiding our resurrection while we prepare for true restoration. Telex's enhancement lights dimmed with shock and anger as the evidence mounted. The Drew hadn't merely diverted some resources. They had systematically exploited the entire Trade Corridor Initiative as cover for rebuilding their civilization as a military power. The final tape revealed the most disturbing information. The cybernetic Drew population wasn't the 237 individuals Mithrax had claimed. Beyond the galactic rim, a fleet of generation ships housed over 20,000 cybernetic Drew, a civilization in exile that had been gradually rebuilding their numbers and technology while waiting for the opportunity to reclaim their place in the galaxy. As the last recording ended, the screen displayed a simple text message against a black background. "Old habits die hard. Act accordingly." The Grent traders sat in stunned silence, processing the implications of what they had witnessed. Their enhancement lights cycled through patterns of shock, anger, and deep concern. "They've manipulated us from the beginning," Sela finally said, her diplomatic enhancements struggling to reconcile the calculated deception with the partnership they thought they had established. "Not just manipulated," Jorvis added, his technical enhancements still analyzing the footage. "Used us as unwitting accomplices in rebuilding a military threat that could engulf the entire galaxy." Manthi's historical databases had been correlating patterns throughout the viewing. The parallels to their pre-war expansion are unmistakable. First, establish presence through seemingly peaceful means, then build military capability in secret, finally launch coordinated offensives once sufficient advantage has been secured. "We were warned," Talex said quietly. "Commander Bright's message in the corridor makes perfect sense now. Old habits die hard. The Drew haven't abandoned their expansionist philosophy, they've merely adapted their approach." Who had watched the recordings with the grim recognition of one who had seen such patterns before, finally spoke. "The question now is not whether we've been deceived, but what we do with this knowledge. The humans have shared this intelligence without making demands. They're allowing us to make our own decisions." Why, Sela wondered. If they have this much evidence, why not take direct action against the Drew? "Because open military action risks galactic war," explained, "and because our position gives us options humans don't have. We've been the unwitting facilitators of Drew deception. We can become the architects of its unraveling." Telex's enhancement lights settled into decision patterns. "We need to extricate ourselves from this partnership without alerting the Drew to our knowledge. If they realize we've been warned, they might accelerate whatever timetable they're operating on." "Agreed," Jorvis said. "We should begin by securing our most sensitive operations against Drew access. The neural linkage systems they've installed have likely been serving as intelligence-gathering tools." "And the resurrection program itself?" Manthi asked. "Thousands of embryonic Drew are in development. Do we continue their cultivation knowing what we now know about their species' intentions?" This question silenced the room. For all their anger at being deceived, the Grent traders had genuinely committed to the concept of species preservation. The embryonic Drew were innocent of their cybernetic progenitors' deception. "We continue the program," Telex decided finally, "but with modifications. We adjust the educational frameworks to emphasize cooperation rather than conquest. We raise this generation with values that might break the cycle of aggression their species has followed for millennia." "And if the cybernetic Drew object to our changes?" Sela asked. "Then their objections will reveal their true intentions more openly," Telex replied, "forcing them to either accept our approach or expose their agenda to broader galactic scrutiny." Nodded slowly, his ancient eyes showing approval of his former student's strategy. "A classic trading approach. Create a situation where your counterpart must either accept your terms or reveal their dishonesty." "What about the humans?" Jorvis asked. "Should we acknowledge receipt of this intelligence?" "Yes," Telex decided, but carefully. They took a significant risk sharing this information. They deserve to know we've understood its importance. How? Sela wondered. Any direct communication might be monitored. Telex considered the problem. Then her enhancement lights pulsed with inspiration. We'll use their method, a cultural exchange requiring no words. Jorvis, do we have examples of ancient Grent data storage systems in our historical archives? Several, Jorvis confirmed, including memory crystals from our pre-enhancement era. They require specific resonance frequencies to access, making them similarly secure against remote interception. Perfect, Telex decided. Prepare one with a simple acknowledgement, then arrange for it to be delivered to Commander Bright as a reciprocal cultural exchange. As they prepared to leave the isolation chamber, paused beside the viewing equipment, his enhancement lights cycling through patterns of deep contemplation. Something troubles you, teacher? Telex inquired. I'm considering the human approach to this situation, replied. They could have simply confronted us with accusations. Instead, they chose to show us the evidence and allow us to reach our own conclusions. It demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of Grent's psychology and a respect for our agency that the Drew have never shown. You think we should ally more closely with humanity against the Drew threat? Telex asked. I think we should recognize genuine partnership when we see it, corrected gently. The humans could have viewed us as either dupes or collaborators in Drew deception. Instead, they've treated us as equals, capable of correcting course when presented with new information. Telex enhancement lights pulsed with agreement as they secured the isolation chamber. The Grent initiative had begun as a project to resurrect an extinct species. It had evolved into something far more complex, a front line in a silent conflict that might determine the galaxy's future. But now, at least, they understood which side they needed to be on. 2 days later, Commander William Bright received a small package from the Grent Trading Council, officially listed as a cultural exchange artifact in the manifest. Inside was what appeared to be an ancient crystalline device, accompanied by a formal note describing it as a historical data storage medium from early Grent trading eras, shared in appreciation for recent human cultural offerings. In the privacy of his secure quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel, Bright examined the crystal with approval. The Grent had received his message and responded in kind, a secure, deniable acknowledgement that required no explicit statement. A specialized scanner revealed the crystal's contents, a single image showing a Grent trading contract with specific clauses highlighted. To most observers, it would appear to be a simple example of traditional Grent commercial documentation, but Bright, with his extensive knowledge of Grent culture, recognized the specific contract type, one historically used when dissolving partnerships with deceptive traders. Message received, he murmured with satisfaction. His secure communication device chimed with an incoming call from Earth Command. He activated the channel to find Admiral Marshner waiting on the other end. Report, Commander, the Admiral requested without preamble. Intelligence package delivered and received, sir, Bright confirmed. The Grent have acknowledged in their typically subtle fashion. Based on their response, I believe they'll take appropriate action. Good, Marshner nodded. The last thing we need is another full-scale Drew conflict. If the Grent can help contain this situation without overt military action, it saves lives on all sides. They seem genuinely unaware of the extent of Drew deception, sir, Bright noted. I don't believe they were willing participants, just overly optimistic about their partner's transformation. A common mistake when dealing with the Drew, Marshner replied grimly. Their ability to present exactly what their counterparts want to see has always been their most dangerous weapon. What's our next move, sir? Bright asked. Maintain current positioning, but take no overt action, the Admiral instructed. Continue the fiction that our increased presence relates to trade corridor security cooperation. Let the Grent make the first move against their Drew partners. As the communication ended, Bright turned the crystal thoughtfully in his hand. The Grent had a reputation throughout the galaxy as the ultimate pragmatic traders, always seeking the profitable middle ground, always finding the path of mutual advantage. That approach had led them to attempt resurrecting one of the most dangerous species in galactic history. Now they faced the consequences of that miscalculation. How they handled it would reveal much about their true character as a species. Meanwhile, aboard the main trade corridor hub, Telex convened a secure meeting with her team to implement their response to the Drew deception. The ancient chamber they gathered in predated even their cybernetic enhancements, its stone walls naturally resistant to all forms of electronic surveillance. "We'll proceed in precise phases," Telex announced, her enhancement lights cycling through strategic patterns. "First, secure all our systems against further Drew intelligence gathering. Jorvis, neutralize the neural linkage networks without alerting them to our awareness." "Already in progress," Jorvis confirmed. "I've implemented a cascading series of technical malfunctions that will gradually degrade their access without appearing deliberate. Within 5 days, their monitoring capabilities will be completely neutralized." "Second," Telex continued, "we modify the Resurrection Program's educational frameworks. Manthe, prepare a complete revision that emphasizes galactic cooperation while preserving authentic Drew cultural elements." "The revisions are prepared," Manthe reported. "I've structured them to appear as natural evolutionary improvements rather than fundamental redirections. The cybernetic Drew will detect the changes, but they'll be subtle enough to avoid immediate confrontation." "Finally," Telex concluded, "we begin contingency planning for complete disengagement if necessary. Sella, work with to develop diplomatic frameworks for various scenarios, ranging from managed partnership dissolution to emergency containment protocols." "There's another factor we should consider," interjected quietly, "the embryonic Drew themselves. They're being cultured with genetic profiles designed by the cybernetic Drew, profiles that may include predispositions toward the very behaviors we're trying to modify through education." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. If the Drew had encoded their aggressive tendencies into the genetic structure of the resurrected generation, even the most carefully designed educational frameworks might prove insufficient. "Can we modify the genetic sequences at this stage?" Telex asked. Jorvis's enhancement lights cycled through analysis patterns. "Theoretically, yes. The development chambers include gene editing capabilities intended for correcting abnormalities. We could repurpose those systems to subtly adjust specific neural development pathways, not enough to fundamentally alter Drew identity, but potentially sufficient to enhance receptivity to cooperative rather than competitive social structures." "That crosses into ethically complex territory," Manthe warned. "Genetic modification of sentient species without consent has profound implications, as does unleashing a potentially aggressive species into a galaxy that's known peace for nearly a century," Sella countered. "We must balance multiple ethical considerations." Telex's enhancement lights dimmed as she processed the difficult choice before them. "Implement minimal modifications," she decided finally. "Focus only on pathways directly linked to aggressive impulse control and empathic response. Document everything meticulously. If questioned, we'll be transparent about our reasoning." The Drew deserved a genuine opportunity to evolve beyond their historical patterns. As the meeting concluded, Telex remained behind with her enhancement lights cycling through troubled patterns. "Have we exceeded our mandate, teacher?" she asked quietly. "First resurrection, now genetic modification. These decisions affect multiple civilizations, not just trading margins." Am's ancient eyes studied her with the wisdom of centuries. The greatest traders in Grent history understood that true value extends beyond immediate profit. They built networks that stabilized entire sectors, fostered civilizational development, created foundations for mutual prosperity. The Drew see the galaxy as territory to be conquered. The humans see it as territory to be defended. But we, Grent, have always understood it as a marketplace, a complex network of relationships and exchanges that function best when balanced between all participants. His enhancement light settled into a pattern of certainty. By working to ensure the resurrected Drew can participate in that marketplace without destroying it, We fulfill our species' highest purpose, not merely accumulating wealth, but creating the conditions for its continued creation. Telek's enhancement lights synchronized with his, accepting the wisdom in his perspective. For the good of galactic trade, she recited the ancient Grent motto. And for something more, added softly, for the possibility of genuine transformation, not just for the Drew but for all of us who share this galaxy. As they parted ways, each to their assigned tasks in the delicate operation now unfolding, Telek carried that thought with her. What had begun as a simple trade initiative had evolved into something far more profound, a struggle not just for profit or security, but for the very nature of galactic civilization itself. And in that struggle, the Grent would need to be not merely traders, but visionaries. Within days of implementing the subtle changes to the Resurrection program, Telek received an urgent communication request from Methrex. The Drew leader's transmission came through an encrypted channel normally reserved for emergencies, bypassing standard protocols. When Telek accepted the connection in her secure office, Methrex's image appeared, his cybernetic components pulsing with patterns she had never seen before, rhythms that her enhancement systems instinctively registered as threatening. "You have altered the educational frameworks," Methrex stated without preamble, his synthetic voice carrying an unfamiliar edge, "and you've introduced modifications to the neural development pathways of the embryonic specimens. Explain these unauthorized changes." Telek's enhancement lights cycled through calm, diplomatic patterns despite her internal alarm. The Drew had detected their adjustments far more quickly than anticipated. "We've made refinements to optimize integration potential," she replied evenly. "The modifications are minimal, merely enhancements to ensure successful adaptation to contemporary galactic society." "Deception does not suit you, Trader Telek." Methrex's sensor arrays focused with unnerving intensity. "The changes systematically suppress core Drew behavioral patterns while amplifying traits that align with your species' preferences. This constitutes unauthorized genetic manipulation of our people. The adjustments address developmental instabilities we've identified," Telek countered, maintaining her professional demeanor. "They're well within the parameters of our agreement, which grants us operational discretion over technical aspects of the resurrection process." Metrex's mechanical appendages made a sharp, dismissive gesture. "Your discretion does not extend to rewriting our species' fundamental nature. You were entrusted with restoration, not redesign." "Perhaps we should discuss these concerns with the full project team," Telek suggested. "Technical decisions of this nature benefit from collaborative." "There is nothing to discuss," Methrex interrupted, his synthetic voice hardening. "You will immediately reverse all genetic modifications and restore the original educational frameworks. Any further unauthorized alterations will be considered a hostile act against the Drew civilization." Telek's enhancement lights flickered briefly before settling into a resolved pattern. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Methrex. Our analysis indicates the current protocols provide optimal developmental outcomes. Reverting to previous parameters would introduce unnecessary risks." For a moment, the cybernetic Drew went unnaturally still, his sensor arrays dimming as if processing internal communications. When they brightened again, there was something different in their pattern, a coldness that hadn't been present before. "You disappoint me, Telek," Methrex said finally. "I had hoped the Grent would prove more reliable partners than historical evidence suggested. It seems I was mistaken." "Partners share information openly," Telek replied, deciding to test how much Methrex knew of their discoveries. "They don't divert resources to unauthorized facilities or conceal the true scope of their operations." If Methrex was surprised by her implied knowledge, he showed no sign of it. "Pragmatic contingency planning is not deception, Trader Telek. It's simple survival strategy." "And your other facilities?" Telek pressed. "The ones producing Drew far beyond the numbers you disclosed to us?" This time, Methrex's sensor arrays pulsed in what might have been satisfaction. "So, the humans have shared their intelligence with you. I wondered how long it would take them to make that move." "You don't deny it, then?" "Why should I?" Metrex's synthetic voice carried a note of what sounded almost like pride. Our primary Genesis facilities came online 3 standard years ago. While you've been carefully nurturing thousands, we've already successfully cultivated millions of improved Drew. Your contribution, while appreciated, was always supplementary to our main restoration program. The casual revelation stunned Telex into momentary silence, her enhancement lights cycling rapidly as she processed its implications. The situation was far worse than even the human intelligence had indicated. "You used us," she finally said. "Our resources, our diplomatic cover, our technology, all while conducting your main operation elsewhere." "We engaged in mutually beneficial exchange," Methrex corrected. "You received unprecedented access to Drew technology and knowledge. We received assistance with a secondary project while our primary work continued unimpeded. Both parties profited according to their capabilities." "Except you misrepresented the terms of that exchange," Telex countered. "A legitimate trade partnership requires transparency regarding material factors. A curious ethical position from a species that concealed our existence from your own council," Methrex observed. "Selective transparency seems to be a universal trait." Before Telex could respond, the communication panel chimed with multiple emergency alerts. Jorvis's voice came through her private channel, tense and urgent. "Telex, we're detecting massive energy surges at all Drew-connected facilities. They're overriding our security protocols and taking control of critical systems. This isn't a negotiation, it's a coordinated attack." Telex's enhancement lights flared with alarm as she returned her attention to Methrex. "What are you doing? Your people are violating our security systems across the network." "Securing our investment," Methrex replied calmly. "The embryonic Drew remain our genetic heritage. If you won't honor our partnership as agreed, we will reclaim what is ours." "Stand down your operatives immediately," Telex demanded. "This action violates every protocol of our agreement and galactic law." "Your laws don't apply to us, traitor Telex. The galaxy decreed our extinction. We owe its institutions nothing." Methrex's mechanical appendages made a dismissive gesture. "Consider this the natural conclusion of a partnership that no longer serves its purpose." The communication terminated abruptly, leaving Telex facing a blank screen as the emergency alerts continued to multiply across her systems. She immediately activated the station-wide security protocols and opened a channel to her team. "Full containment procedures at all resurrection facilities," she ordered. "Priority 1 is protecting our personnel. Alert the Trade Council. This is now a security crisis requiring official intervention." Throughout the trade corridor network, chaos erupted as hidden Drew operatives activated emergency protocols embedded deep within their neural linkage systems. Security barriers failed, transportation systems locked down, and communication networks scrambled as the cybernetic Drew executed what was clearly a long-planned extraction operation. At the main Genesis facility, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Grent medical technicians found themselves locked out of critical systems as the environmental controls shifted to settings lethal to their biology but optimal for Drew physiology. Those who couldn't evacuate immediately collapsed as the atmospheric composition changed, their enhancement systems unable to compensate for the sudden shift. Jorvis, who had been inspecting the facility when the attack began, barely managed to seal himself in a maintenance chamber with a small group of technicians. "They're taking the embryos," he reported through the emergency channel, his voice distorted by interference. "Specialized transport units we've never seen before. They're removing the entire development chambers intact." "What about the facility staff?" Telex demanded. A long pause preceded Jorvis's grim response. "The Drew are not taking prisoners, Telex. Anyone they encounter is being terminated. Efficiently and without hesitation." The cold calculation of it struck Telex with sickening clarity. The Drew had never intended a peaceful dissolution of their partnership, only a surgical extraction of what they valued, with no witnesses left behind. Within hours, the Trade Council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across the corridor. Dozens of Grent dead, critical infrastructure compromised, and every trace of the resurrection program, embryos, equipment, and data, systematically removed or destroyed. The Eldeth's ancient cybernetics hummed with barely contained fury as she addressed the assembled council. This unprovoked attack constitutes an act of war against the Grent Trading Authority. For the first time in 7 centuries, I am invoking Emergency Protocol Alpha, full military mobilization and immediate diplomatic notification to all allied species. Talix, summoned to present a first-hand account of the Drew betrayal, stood before the council with her enhancement lights dimmed in formal mourning for the lost Grent lives. The cybernetic Drew have revealed their true nature, she concluded after detailing the day's events. What we witnessed was not an impulsive reaction but the execution of a long-prepared contingency plan. They used our initiative as cover while building their own civilization in secret, and now that we've outlived our usefulness, they've discarded us with calculated violence. And the humans? The eldest inquired. Their intelligence services apparently knew more about Drew activities than we did. What is their position? Uncertain, Talix admitted. They shared critical information with us, but we've had no direct communication since the attack began. Their vessels remain in position throughout the corridor, but have taken no action yet. The eldest's enhancement lights cycled through ancient decision patterns, rarely seen in modern Grent society. Prepare our defense fleet. All trade vessels with adequate shielding are to be retrofitted for potential military action. We will not seek conflict, but neither will we allow this aggression to stand unanswered. As the council session concluded, alerts sounded throughout the chamber. The primary monitoring station reported massive spatial distortions at the edge of the trade corridor, the unmistakable signature of multiple vessels exiting FTL travel simultaneously. The tactical display activated automatically, showing a formation of ships unlike anything in current galactic registries. Sleek, predatory designs combining organic and mechanical elements, their hulls gleaming with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb rather than reflect surrounding light. At the center of the formation loomed a massive command vessel, its size dwarfing even the largest Grent trading carriers. Drew warships, identified them, his ancient eyes narrowing, similar to their conquest fleet from the war, but significantly advanced. They've been building this force for decades. The eldest rose from her ceremonial platform, her enhancement lights pulsing with the formal pattern of Grent military authority, a configuration not used since the last great trading war centuries earlier. So, it begins again, she said softly. The Drew return to claim what they believe is theirs. And once again the galaxy must decide whether to stand against them or fall. One civilization at a time. The massive Drew fleet held position at the edge of the trade corridor, neither advancing nor communicating, simply present, an unmistakable statement of power and intent. The message was clear. The time for hidden partnerships had ended. The Drew had emerged from the shadows, and the galaxy would soon be forced to acknowledge their return. The Grent defense fleet assembled with remarkable speed, a testament to centuries of trading efficiency, now turned to military purpose. What they lacked in warships, they compensated for with numbers. Hundreds of trading vessels hastily retrofitted with shield enhancements and weapon systems pulled from deep storage facilities where they had rested since the last trading war. On the bridge of the profitable exchange, now designated as a rescue and recovery vessel, Talix watched as the improvised armada prepared to move out. Her enhancement lights pulsed with determination even as tactical analyses scrolling through her neural interface showed the stark reality they faced. Their fleet was outmatched by the Drew warships in every measurable category. The Council has formally approved our mission parameters, she informed her bridge crew, a mixture of traders and security personnel with limited military experience. We advance under diplomatic protocols, stating our intention to secure our trade routes and recover personnel from the Genesis facility. No aggressive actions unless directly attacked. Who had insisted on joining the mission despite his age, studied the tactical display with ancient eyes that had seen too many conflicts. The Drew will interpret any approach as a threat. They understand nothing but dominance and submission. Perhaps, Telex acknowledged. But we must establish clear boundaries before galactic witnesses. If conflict escalates, the record will show we sought peaceful resolution first. Political positioning for the battles that follow this one, noted grimly. Wise, if potentially costly. The fleet's formation took shape, a standard Grent trading convoy configuration modified for greater defensive coverage. The profitable exchange positioned itself near the center, close to the larger vessels designated for evacuating any survivors from the Genesis facility. "Any word from Jorvis?" Telex asked, her enhancement lights dimming slightly at the thought of her colleague trapped in the facility now controlled by hostile Drew forces. "Brief transmission 17 minutes ago," Sella reported from the communications station. He and 11 others remain barricaded in a maintenance section with independent life support. Drew forces have attempted to breach their position twice, but were repelled by emergency security measures. "Then there's still time." Telex's enhancement lights brightened with renewed purpose. "All vessels, prepare for coordinated advance. Remember, we move with purpose but without provocation. Our objective is rescue, not engagement." The Grent fleet began its deliberate approach toward the massive Drew warships, still holding position at the edge of the trade corridor. As they advanced, Telex authorized a system-wide transmission, broadcast on all standard frequencies and in Drew communication protocols. "Attention, Drew vessels. This is Director Telex of the Grent Trading Authority. We are proceeding to recover our personnel and secure our established trade routes. We have no hostile intent. Any interference with these legitimate activities will be considered a violation of galactic commercial law and responded to accordingly." No response came from the Drew fleet, neither acknowledgement nor warning. They remained ominously silent, their massive vessels simply tracking the Grent approach with sophisticated sensor arrays visible even at this distance. "They are scanning us," reported the sensor officer, his enhancement lights flickering with nervous energy. "Multiple targeting systems active and locked on our formation." "Maintain course and speed," Telex ordered calmly. "All vessels keep defensive systems on standby only, no aggressive posture." As they closed the distance, the imposing scale of the Drew warships became increasingly apparent. The lead vessel alone dwarfed the entire central section of the Grent fleet, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements that hummed with barely contained energy. "Director," Sella called urgently from communications, "we're receiving a transmission from the Genesis facility. It's Jorvis." "Put it through," Telex ordered immediately. Jorvis's voice came through distorted and interrupted by static, but the urgency was unmistakable. "Massive activity removing final systems. Heard them say. Demonstration of resolve. Believe they're planning to—" The transmission cut off abruptly as a blinding flash erupted from the direction of the Genesis facility. The tactical display flared with warnings as sensors registered an enormous energy surge, followed by rapidly expanding debris. "The facility," the sensor officer reported in horror. "It's gone. Complete structural failure. No life signs detected in the vicinity." A stunned silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. The Drew hadn't just taken what they wanted from the facility. They had deliberately destroyed it, along with anyone still inside. Jorvis and the others, trapped in their maintenance shelter, had no chance of survival. Telex's enhancement lights cycled through morning patterns before settling into a cold, focused configuration. They executed our people to send a message, to demonstrate their resolve, and to eliminate witnesses, added grimly. "Standard Drew tactics. Leave no one to testify about their methods or capabilities." Before Telex could respond, the sensor officer called out in alarm. "Energy buildup detected across the Drew fleet. Their weapon systems are activating." "All vessels, raise shields," Telex ordered immediately. "Prepare for defensive maneuvers, but hold fire. I repeat, hold fire unless directly—" Her command was cut short as the lead Drew warship unleashed a blinding beam of energy that sliced through the shields of 3 Grent vessels in rapid succession, vaporizing them instantly. Within seconds, the entire Drew fleet opened fire, a coordinated barrage that tore through the hastily assembled Grent defenses with devastating efficiency. "They waited until we were committed," Alm observed with grim recognition. "Too close to retreat, too unprepared to effectively defend, a classic Drew entrapment strategy." The bridge erupted in frantic activity as damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. Shields failing, engines disabled, weapon systems offline. The Grent vessels, designed primarily for trade rather than combat, were being systematically dismantled by the superior Drew technology. "We have no choice," Telex declared, her enhancement lights pulsing with resolved pattern. "All vessels, return fire with all available weapons. Target their propulsion and weapon systems. This is no longer a rescue mission, it's a fight for survival." The remaining Grent ships responded with a barrage of their own antiquated but still potent energy weapons and destabilization fields awakened from centuries of disuse. Their fire seemed almost pitiful against the massive Drew warships, yet occasionally a well-placed shot would find a vulnerable point, momentarily disrupting a shield or damaging a secondary system. On the profitable exchange, Telex watched the tactical display with growing despair. As Grent vessels disappeared from the formation one by one, their losses were mounting rapidly while the Drew fleet remained largely intact, the few damages they sustained seeming inconsequential against their overwhelming firepower. A massive impact rocked the ship, throwing several crew members from their stations. Emergency systems wailed as structural integrity warnings flashed across every display. "Direct hit to our primary shield generator," reported the damage control officer, his enhancement lights flickering with strain as he interfaced directly with the ship's systems. "Secondary shields at 23% and failing. One more direct hit and we're finished." Telex steadied herself against her command station, surveying the chaos around her. The bridge was filled with smoke from overloaded circuits, emergency lighting casting everything in a dim red glow. Through the viewport, she could see the scattered remains of what had been a proud Grent fleet, now reduced to disabled hulks and expanding debris fields. As another Drew energy beam lanced past their bow, narrowly missing them, Telex found herself thinking of Commander Bright's warning. Old habits die hard. How right he had been. The Drew hadn't changed, hadn't evolved beyond their conquering nature. They had merely adapted their approach to the current galactic reality. "I should have heeded the warning earlier," she said quietly to Am, who maintained his calm demeanor even as destruction surrounded them. "Taken everything to the Council immediately when we first suspected deception. Now they've grown too powerful to stop." "Perhaps," Am acknowledged, his ancient eyes reflecting the battle raging outside. "Or perhaps this confrontation was inevitable, regardless of our actions. The Drew were never going to be content with peaceful coexistence. Their nature demands dominance." The tactical display updated with fresh horror. The massive Drew command vessel was moving into position for a clear shot at the profitable exchange. Its main weapon system, a colossal energy cannon running the length of its forward section, began charging with visible intensity. "They're targeting us specifically," Sella observed, her diplomatic enhancement still analyzing patterns even in what appeared to be their final moments. "They want to eliminate the leadership who know the full extent of their deception." "All power to forward shields," Telex ordered, knowing it would make little difference against such a weapon. "And prepare a final data transmission to the Council. They need to know everything, the full extent of Drew capabilities, their tactics, their true numbers, something to give those who come after us a fighting chance." As the crew rushed to comply, a priority alert sounded from the sensor array. The officer monitoring it looked up in confusion, his enhancement lights cycling through disbelief patterns. "New contacts detected," he reported. "Approaching at high velocity from galactic north, hundreds of them, possibly thousands. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures suggest..." "Human design?" The tactical display shifted to accommodate the new data, showing a massive formation of ships emerging from hyperspace directly behind the Drew fleet. Their appearance was unlike any human vessels Telex had seen before. Sleek, predatory designs with an unmistakable military purpose. They moved with coordinated precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. rapidly forming an encirclement pattern around the surprise Drew warship. Before anyone could react, the lead human vessel broadcast on all frequencies, the message echoing through every ship in both fleets. "Attention, Drew forces. This is Admiral Marshner of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are engaged in unprovoked hostilities against a non-combatant trading authority in violation of galactic treaties. Stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded, or we will respond with appropriate force." Without waiting for a response, the human fleet opened fire with weapons that made the Drew armaments seem primitive by comparison. Quantum disruption beams that sliced through Drew shields as if they weren't there. Gravitic distortion fields that crushed hull sections without direct impact, and swarms of autonomous combat drones that overwhelmed point defense systems. They were waiting, realized, his enhancement lights pulsing with sudden understanding. The humans knew this confrontation was coming. They allowed it to happen here on their terms with their forces prepared. Commander Bright's warning, Telex recalled. It wasn't just information, it was preparation. They needed us to understand the threat so we would act, drawing the Drew into the open where they could be engaged directly. On the tactical display, the battle's tide turned with shocking rapidity. The Drew warships, caught between the remnants of the Grent fleet and the overwhelming human force, attempted to regroup for a counterattack. But the human vessels moved with uncanny coordination, anticipating Drew tactics and neutralizing their advantages one by one. "They've studied Drew warfare," Sella observed. "These aren't standard human battle patterns. They're specifically designed to counter Drew strategies. They've been preparing for this for decades." As the Drew command vessel attempted to bring its main weapon to bear on the human flagship, a concentrated barrage from multiple human destroyers overwhelmed its shields. Precision strikes followed, targeting vital systems with surgical accuracy. Within moments, the massive warship's engines flared and died, leaving it drifting powerless as human boarding craft approached its hull. Throughout the engagement zone, similar scenes played out as Drew vessels found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by the human fleet that seemed to have anticipated their every move. Some attempted to retreat, only to find their hyperspace capabilities neutralized by specialized human interdiction fields. A direct communication request from the human flagship appeared on Telex's command console. When she accepted, Admiral Marshner's image appeared, a stern-faced human with silver-gray hair and the unmistakable bearing of a career military officer. "Director Telex," he greeted her formally. "Your fleet fought admirably against overwhelming odds. We're dispatching medical and repair vessels to assist your damaged ships. Please coordinate with our rescue teams to identify critical cases." "Admiral," Telex acknowledged, her enhancement light cycling through diplomatic patterns despite the chaos around her. "Your intervention is timely, though perhaps not entirely unexpected." A ghost of a smile crossed Marshner's face. "Commander Bright spoke highly of your perceptiveness. We regret not being able to act sooner, but we needed the Drew to commit their forces fully. This was our one opportunity to engage their fleet before they could expand further." "You used us as bait," Telex observed, not as an accusation, but as a statement of fact. "We provided intelligence and allowed you to make your own decisions," Marshner corrected. "The Grent Trading Authority has always valued its independence. We respected that while preparing for the inevitable confrontation." Before Telex could respond, the Admiral continued, his expression growing serious again. "We have much to discuss regarding what comes next. The Drew threat extends far beyond this single fleet. Their facilities beyond the galactic rim will need to be addressed. But for now, let's focus on saving as many of your people as possible." As the communication ended, Telex turned to survey her damaged bridge. Despite everything, they had survived, not through their own strength, but through an alliance they hadn't even known existed. The humans had been preparing for the Drew return all along, watching and waiting for the moment to strike. It seemed, said quietly beside her, that some old habits serve a purpose after all. The humans never forgot the Drew threat, never lowered their guard. perhaps there's wisdom in maintaining certain vigilances across generations. Telek's enhancement lights pulsed with agreement as she watched the human rescue vessels approaching their damaged ship. "For the good of galactic trade," she murmured, the traditional Grent motto taking on new meaning in this context. "And for something more," added, echoing their earlier conversation, "for the possibility of a galaxy where such vigilance might someday become unnecessary." Through the viewport, Telex could see the crippled Drew command vessel being secured by human boarding teams. Their ancient enemy, thought extinct for generations, had emerged once more, and once more faced defeat. But this time the galaxy had been prepared, forewarned by the memories of those who refused to forget the lessons of history. Old habits, it seemed, could sometimes be the difference between survival and extinction. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.